All right, welcome to another Friday night episode of Keto Rocks Radio. I'm Jim Hobbs, and down below me is my carnivore co-host, Brian Damage Forsythe of the band Kix and Rhino Bucket. And you guys just got a chance to play with both bands in the same weekend in Tennessee. How'd that go, Brian?
Yeah, pulling double duty. Overall, it went great. I mean, it's stressful heading into it, but now that it's over, it's a huge relief. But it was still fun, and I think overall, it was a success.
Good, good. I saw some of our keto people actually were attending that had visited the keto retreats, was attending Monster on the Mountain. So I don't know if they got a chance to catch up with you or not, but
I didn't run into too many people I knew. Of course, I wasn't mingling.
did you have any good food while you were in Pigeon Forge? Is it Pigeon Forge,
Yeah,
Tennessee?
yeah. Yeah, a friend of Shannon's has a cabin, or used to have a cabin there. So he's familiar with the area, and he suggested this barbecue place that's out of town. Because it was weird. I pictured Pigeon Forge as like some place in the woods. And it's not. It's this huge touristy place. It's just a tourist attraction. And but there's some outskirts spots, and this barbecue place was on the outskirts, so we went there, and it was called Boss Hog Barbecue, and that was really good. I mean, it's your classic barbecue place. You walk in, you go up to the counter, you order, and then they bring you your food. And they had, of course, I got brisket, but they had the standard pulled pork, brisket, ribs, and I didn't even check beyond that. But I think they probably had chicken too. I don't know.
But it was good.
Oh yeah, the brisket. And I always ask for, can you, because I asked about, do you have a choice between lean or fatty? And she goes, well, they cut the fat off. And I go, oh, I said, can you ask them if there's any fat laying around just to throw it in there for me? And I got some nice juicy pieces, so it was really good.
Good, good. What was the temperature there in Pigeon Forge? Is it in the mountains? Is it kind of cool?
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of right. It's right, real close to the border of South or North Carolina. It's
So
in
it's in
those
the smoke. It's in the Smokies.
yeah. So it's in those mountains in between. But it was kind of the same as here. It was sunny and but cool in the shade. And then Saturday it rained, and it got a little bit cooler after that. But it was classic fall weather.
Yeah, here in Virginia this weekend was just perfect. I mean, we had a little bit of a cold front that came on Saturday afternoon that blew in some wind and some rain.
Mhm.
Sunday was kind of cool. Monday was definitely cooler, but it's just blue skies, perfect temperature, no humidity.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's my time. Fall, October especially is my favorite month. I just love October weather in Virginia. So
Yeah, that was September, October. Those were the only times I enjoyed Maryland when I was there.
yeah, yeah. The rest of the time, and if you don't like the cold, that's definitely not a place to be come the rest of the months. And if you don't like humidity, summer is definitely not when you want to be in the DC area.
Right.
Well, we got a surprise guest coming joining us tonight. Somebody who but we don't know how well you know them. So I'm going to give you some clues or some facts about their life to see if you can guess who it is. We've never done this before, so we will see uh, if the clues are good enough to get you to be able to name correctly this guess.
Do I get to ask questions?
No. Unless that person wants to text me the answers, I think the voice may give it away, but I will give you clue number one that this individual was a touring program race car driver from 1997 to 2004 with national rankings in the top 20. And even though I know you do not follow sports, this person was a national ranked race car driver.
Hmm.
You have a
Okay.
guess?
No, give me another clue.
Okay. Okay. All right. This person has never been fired from a job, but got 11 W-2s in 1 year. And because he was much younger and he quit every job he had in the mall. And because he would not wear the name tag, I am Sears. So he quit every job he had at the mall and he would not wear the name tag, I am Sears. So what mall had Sears in it? So that's another clue.
Oh,
Nothing's jumping in your head, huh?
there used to be a lot of malls with Sears in.
All right. These next two clues will probably put it together for you. If not, then we're gonna give you the questions. Number 3, during the downtime during COVID, this person enjoyed sitting around the fire pit and watching the International Space Station fly overhead as often as possible.
Could it be? Now, this is somebody I know, right?
It is.
Is his first name have 3 letters?
Legal name or
I
what he's
don't
known
know.
by?
Okay. What I would
Yes.
call him.
Yes, that would be correct.
Would it be Bob?
Bob who?
Well, now here's the tricky part.
Okay.
I've heard his last name pronounced 2 different ways.
Well,
I call him Bob Perry.
Bob Perry, is it you? Will our surprise guest make an appearance?
I was actually going to guess on the first clue, but I wasn't sure. I needed some cross reference. The fire pit gave it away.
Yeah.
Well, Bob's fourth clue was going to be that he has a cool Rickenbacker guitar collection, but he doesn't play any of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Bob, welcome to the show.
Well, Bob, I got to ask you too. I heard Steve Olivas pronounce your name differently.
Perret.
Okay.
With an accent on the E.
Okay, and that's the correct pronunciation.
That is the correct. But being from Maryland, it's just easier
Right.
to say Perry.
Right. Okay.
And with the computer age nowadays, most things won't let you enter an accent on an E. So it's just easier to just leave it as P-A-R-E with no accent on the E. And then people just call it pear. So
Right.
like, if you go like the DMV or any of the government offices, that it's just a real challenge. So I just quit arguing and just let it go.
Right.
Now, Bob, where are you originally from? Are you?
I mean, I'm Canadian. I lived in Pennsylvania when I was really young. My parents came down from Canada, and for hospitals and work for my dad. So I spent the first couple of years in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and then came to Maryland, a little place called Imesville. Then I moved back to Alberta, Canada, on the west side, the west end, and then came back to Maryland. So this is definitely home.
Now, what are you in the Frederick? What part of Maryland are you in?
Yeah,
Frederick?
just outside of Frederick. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, did you two know each other when Brian, when you were living out here 20 some years ago?
You know what? I don't know. Our paths may have crossed, but really, the first time I think I met you was when you were lending Rhino Bucket some gear for that Rick's thing.
Yeah, probably a couple shows. I did a lot of backline for a couple venues and for Rick Parks, and yeah, that we did cross paths a lot.
I'm sure you did.
But everybody's so busy and things are hectic, and it was a different time. And yeah, I mean, we did a lot of shows. Some of my bands warmed up for Kix, and yeah, and it just being in the area. But yeah, more recently, gosh, that's probably been 8 or 9 years now since the Rhino Bucket stuff, at like the ballroom and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's been a little while.
Yeah, your hair was shorter back then
Probably it
when I
gets
first met you.
short and long, short and long.
Yeah.
Yeah. I became domesticated in the late 90s. When I was driving race cars, it was impossible.
Oh
So,
yeah. Yeah,
especially being,
you don't want hair in your face when you're going
yeah,
200 miles an hour.
yeah, no. And then being on TV and doing TV interviews and things like that, it was like, I got to clean up for the sponsors and things like that. So,
Yeah.
Now, how'd you get into that sport, Bob?
well, real long story short, I was living in Los Angeles. I was doing the band thing. Had a couple of record deals go south. I was doing some session work for a couple of different producers, and just like for a lot of folks, the tide started to turn, and the industry started to evolve, and things just weren't looking good. So I said, I think I'm going to go home and kind of take a deep breath, hit the restart button. And so I flew home with like the last money that I had, and it was Easter weekend. My parents were in Canada for the holiday. And so I'm sitting around at home by myself, weighed like 110 pounds, the usual LA story. And I had a friend of mine that I grew up with, a couple doors up from my parents, who raced cars, and he was always a car guy. And he saw I was home, and he had a hernia operation. And he contacted me, called me and said, hey, can you help me? Because I had a hernia operation and I need some help loading stuff up and, carrying stuff for him and, that kind of stuff. And lo and behold, I got bit by the bug pretty hard. We hung out, got to, I stayed out of trouble doing that. And it was nice because the music industry was really going through a transition. This was like 91, somewhere in there. And then 92. And then like I said, the bug bit me pretty hard. And then when the grunge music took over, it sank all the hopes that we had as far as being a session musician or playing in a rock, a real classic rock band. I never wore flannel, didn't do any of that, didn't grow a beard or anything. But anyway, that's how I got into it. The bug bit me pretty hard, and just like anything, I took the ball,
Dove
ran
head
with it.
first, huh?
Yeah, I ran with it pretty hard, and then I really enjoyed the business side of it. It's a lot like being in a band or a entertainment group where there's a business side, and I started to really pursue that. And I started pursuing sponsors, and at that time in like 94, 95, 96, before I almost turned pro, there was a lot of money. The economy was good. We still had Winston as the primary sponsor. And then throughout the Bill Clinton administration, things like Winston and a lot of all the alcohol, the Budweisers and the Bud Lights and Miller Lights and all them, they started to have a little more difficulty. And throughout that administration, things started to dwindle. Just like anything else, it did really well. And I made a lot of money doing it, and I enjoyed it, and I did awesome. And but that was just a really good intermission from playing in a band, because I've been playing guitar since I was 6. I lived in LA. I'd done all the things I needed to do, and I didn't see where it would be fruitful for me to continue. So I enjoyed it, but now that I'm older, I've got a little more sense and a little more wisdom, I decided, let me see what's happening. Let's go back there, throw our hat back in the ring, and here we are.
Well, that's awesome. And did you ever have any major accidents or anything during
No.
your years? That's knock on wood for that. Thank
Yeah.
God for that.
No, I think I sent you some pictures. I had some close calls, but I think I've been on fire once, and
that sounds dangerous to me, Brian. What do you think?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be on fire myself.
Not even once. I was
well, truthfully, in NHRA drag racing, the sanctioning body is the elite. They're dedicated to safety. The rules and regulations. You're actually safer going 200 miles an hour down a drag strip than you are driving on your commute to work. I mean,
I would, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I never ever once remembered being scared, although the adrenaline is like a drug. And so in place of drugs or alcohol, that adrenaline of driving a race car was like, it was perfect for me. And
so you traded one addiction for that addiction. That became your addiction.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I mean, you could still get hurt, but it was much healthier.
So this is what you did was drag racing, just
Yep, straight line.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you started. Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, because I kind of knew you at one point. You were into the racing thing, but I didn't really know to what extent until we did that Thermont show, and I was talking to Dave Toms, and he goes, "Hey."
Oh yeah.
And he mentioned that, and I go, "Oh, he's never said anything." It's like I find out little things about you along the way.
Yeah, well, it's really hard for me to intertwine both of those things, because as similar as they are, I like one of the reasons why I wanted to quit playing music in a band or in that environment was because I didn't want to have to depend on 3 or 4 or 5 other people. Whereas in racing, I was like, okay, it's what I can do. It starts out that way. And then of course you have a team and things like that. But I wanted to get away from having to rely on other people to advance my career. When I got into racing, I was like, I can do this on my own. And the business side of things on my own and things like that. Now, during the later years of racing, when the money started to dry up and insurance, the cost went up and everything just got really bad, I started to realize that, maybe I'll go back to try to play music and just hook up with some people that hopefully have a better head on their shoulders.
Oh, I'm glad you brought back. Is music still a passion for you, Bob?
100%. Yeah.
Awesome. So when you picked up the guitar at 6, who were some of your musical influences at that age?
Well, being Canadian, I was exposed to a lot of
Rush.
Cajun.
Okay.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Cajun kind of French Canadian type music, like accordions and banjos and pianos and things like that.
Can you play the banjo?
I could if I had to. Yeah. Okay. It not as good as my mom, but I could. But I so my whole family plays music, and so those were the first influences in learning guitar chords. Were there, but it wasn't long after that I started listening to FM radio, a couple of local stations around town that I could get on my little radio that I slept with, and just hearing Peter Frampton, Boston, ELO, James Gang, Eagles, that kind of stuff. FM radio was just, that was like that. But the guitar player wise, I really fell in love with Eric Clapton right out of the gate. And I kind of fell out of love with him for a long time, until probably about 10 years ago, where I started to realize that sometimes you don't have to play a lot of notes to get your point across, kind of thing. So So yeah, I think the older I get, the more I go back to those influences, and I've really forgotten a lot about what I did in LA with at the Music Institute with I worked with Rick Emmett and learned how to structure songs and guitar solos and things like that. And although I'm glad I did it, it really didn't amount to more than what those early songs on the FM radio, what they meant to me today. I think those songs had more impact on me today than any of that education that I had.
Yeah, that's it's amazing. You talk about vinyl back then, and it's amazing how vinyl's made a comeback. And I think it really is because of those. I don't know how to put it in words, but there's just a different energy when you're playing vinyl on a diamond needle, and what the music you hear and the cracks and the sounds.
Oh yeah.
It's so, it's like, a CD, it's just so clean, it's so clear, but that vinyl brings it to life. Like it's like real life. And it to me, it's amazing that that's made a full circle back, like just like rock and roll has. Like, everybody wants to hear the classic rock and rolls, rock and roll's back. And it's amazing that we went through the grunge years, and then you just turned off. Nobody really wanted to hear rock and roll for some reason, but that's made its way back to the forefront, and I truly don't think it'll ever go away.
I don't think not in my lifetime. I don't think it will. And I think Neil Young said it best in an interview sometime back, where he said when the engineers at Sony had developed the algorithms for CDs and digital transition, that they had missed something in the DNA that made it to where it wasn't like a record. And it can, as far as I'm concerned, it can never happen. It's almost like analog versus digital. But when he said they messed up the algorithm during that whole thing, which became the industry standard, I believe that. But with that being said, the novelty of a CD was really cool. Not just the convenience part, but you could hear it. It let some artists like jazz or guys like Chick Corea and you could listen to that on a CD and hear a little more. But an album, the vinyl, was a little more. It didn't compliment them as much. That was my opinion. Right. But if you go listen to Boston's first record, or any of the Who, or any of the old Stones stuff, you listen to that on CD, and it just doesn't have that same Pink Floyd. You don't have any of that same feeling.
Well, it's like a warmth that's missing.
Yeah. Well, that's why we play through tube amps. Yeah. And play, because as convenient as it would be to play through amp modelers, although I have plenty and I love them. One of the first conversations I had with Mark about playing with Kix was, I can't play through a modeler. It's not Kix. It's not pure. It's not rock and roll. It's got to be,
I know.
It's got to be pure. And I thought, well, let me start building another Marshall rig for Kix.
Yeah, it's funny because Mark's always on. He's into the new technology and stuff, and always trying to push that. It's like he keeps saying, "Oh, you should just try it," and I'm like, "No." And why fix something that's not broken?
Well, exactly, and it's also, even if you didn't know what you were plugged into, it's like what do they call that sugar pill?
Placebo.
Yeah, it's like a placebo, where you would all of a sudden, it would change the way you play and the way your pick attacks. And even though it may sound great, it changes what's happening right here as well.
It does. Because when we did that last Kix record, because we were doing it in Mark's house, we couldn't be blasting Marshalls like all day long. So we went through the sounds, whatever they were, that he had in whatever we were playing through in the board, and then we went back and later and ran it through an amp.
Reamped, yeah.
And even though the sounds sounded good, there was something missing, and my brain knew it, and I just it made it a struggle to play, even though it sounded fine. But yeah, there's some human element that's just not there.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, Brian, you've been to this place. So Peggy and I this weekend was back at our favorite place down at Colonial Beach. And, they have that room, they got the album room. So, I was playing, they can't play the Kix album anymore because they have it up on the wall now. But they had the Dire Straits album. I forget the name of the title, Brothers in Arms, I think it is.
Yeah, Brother in Arms, yeah.
Brother. And I love side A and B of that vinyl. And it always takes me back to where I used to just listen to that album. There's many days in high school and college. I just put the headphones on and just listen to that vinyl. And there's just something mesmerizing or soothing just to hear the groove. Like you're literally hearing the grooves. It's like the waves of the album moving as the needle goes along with the tracks. At least for me it is. And it just, that's something that a CD does. It's just smooth, clear, clean. And like you said, Brian, there's nothing wrong with it. It sounds very sharp and crisp, but there's just something missing from, and like the warmth you said. Like I really do believe that vinyl gives you a warmth, and then just the whole story, the smelling the album, the pulling out the sleeve, looking at the lyrics, looking at the band notes. There's just like a more intimate experience with the band or whoever or the artist that you're listening to, other than just popping a CD in or going to M3 player and putting their name in and pulling them up. So yeah, totally agree. So, well, Bob, let's talk about, you post a lot of pictures by your pool and grilling out. So let's move it to food just for a little bit. And
yeah. So
what's some of your favorite foods that you like to grill out? You post some great pictures. I'm gonna let you kind of share what you love to cook.
Well, my wife is actually probably more to blame for that, but she tells me what I want to cook if it's a pool day. And of course, can't go wrong with meat. Fillets, we go to Sam's Club or Costco, I think most of the time, and we'll butterfly them. Lately, we got a flat top during COVID. So I started doing like hibachi stuff because we love hibachi. There was a hibachi restaurant right up the road and we miss it terribly. They closed. And so I started trying to figure that out. And first of all, it's a whole lot harder than it looks. But I started experimenting with different sauces and trying to get away from just salt and pepper, but working a lot with garlic, with different types of rice, pre-cooking rice. And so I really got into the hibachi steak there for a while. I mean, we can't go wrong with, we love to grill asparagus and cauliflower. We use a garlic salt and some extra virgin olive oil on that. And it almost tastes like popcorn when we're done. It's pretty good. But the steaks, I mean, that's the centerpiece. That's everything revolves around that. And if it's a long weekend, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'll have fillets, sirloins or T-bones. We rarely do hamburgers or hot dogs. We spend the money on the steaks for sure.
Gotcha. All right. Welcome to that time of the night where we get a chance to check in with Mr. Brian Shanker of the MeatTribe YouTube channel for Meat Deals of the Week. And is there any meat left out there to have deals on, Brian?
There is. I got a few deals, but like you mentioned, and I've been noticing at the stores, there's some bare shelves out there, not in just the meat cases, but a lot of stuff is just not very well stocked. right now. I don't really know what's going on, but I'm definitely hearing rumbles about meat increasing in price. As a matter of fact, I did a trip to Sam's Club today, and there was I was going down the meat case. It's like we're all in line. Everybody, waits their turn and goes down. And the family in front of me, the lady was looking at some chuck roasts and some eye round roasts and stuff. And she was just like, wow, meat prices have really gone up. And the prices on the things that she was looking at was the two roasts that she was looking at were under $5 per pound. And the chuck roast was, I think it was $5, almost $5.50 for the chuck roast at Sam's Club. So I don't think $5.50 is too much for chuck roast, but somebody recently commented on one of my posts that you used to be able to get chuck roast for like under $2 a pound.
Yep.
So that was before I started paying attention. So the $5, the $4.99 pricing doesn't sting so much for me. But in any case, I've got a few deals for you, and then I'm going to talk about my Sam's Club trip if we've got enough time for that.
Sure.
All right, cool. So Food Lion, they've got a deal that's running through the 26th of October. They've got some choice grade boneless New York strip steaks at $9.99 a pound. And if you've got a Harris Teeter, you're going to get a better deal over there. Harris Teeter deals run through the 26th. Now theirs is a rancher grade, but again, as we all know, we've bought the rancher grade from Harris Teeter and they've been fantastic. They've got their boneless New York strips in a small pack for $8.49 a pound. And the value pack, they've got the strip steak and strip house roasts for $7.99 a pound. So $1 per pound cheaper from Food Lion at Harris Teeter. And they've got their choice grade, if you want to spend a couple of dollars more, at Harris Teeter, the New York strip or steakhouse roasts are $9.99 a pound. And then Brian, down your way, Kroger, they've got a few deals going on through the 26th of October. And they all have double fuel points. They've got their choice grade boneless chuck roast for $4.99 a pound. And they've got a boneless Angus top sirloin steak for $7.99 a pound. And then they've got a whole Boston pork butt with the bone in for $1.79 a pound. So if you have any room left in your freezers, you could probably pick a couple of things up and get you some fuel points. All right, so let's talk about Sam's Club. I went to Sam's Club this morning, and one of the refrigerated cases where they usually have seafood on both sides, and and beef cuts on one side, the ends. The first end cap was completely empty. There was nothing in there, and I was like, "What is going on?" And then I went over to where all the main stuff is, and not a lot of stuff there. So I don't know. I do know someone that is a meat purchaser for Safeway. So I think I might give him a ring and see if I can uncover what's going on and be able to report back next week. But Sam's Club did have some stuff. And I'll agree with that lady. Aside from the roasts she was looking at, the cuts of meat for, these cuts of meats I'm going to go over, I thought were quite expensive. So we're going to start off with their choice grade boneless filet mignon at $20.98 a pound for choice grade filet. And for the prime grade filet mignon, $5 more, $25.98. Then they had some choice grade ribeyes for $14.98, and that's kind of been their standard price on the ribeyes for quite a while now, $14.98. And then the prime, $5 more at $19.98. And then the choice grade boneless strip steaks were $12.98 a pound, and the prime grade ones were $17.98 a pound. So all of those are $5 difference between prime and choice. And then they had some briskets. And Brian, you cook more brisket than I do, so because I've never cooked any. Choice grade boneless brisket for $4.98 a pound, and prime grade boneless brisket for $5.48 a pound. Are those decent prices?
Wait, say that one more time.
So choice grade brisket, $4.98, and prime grade brisket, $5.48.
I don't know. You know what? I never even look at that. If I want a
You pay
brisket,
attention to price?
I do. If I want it, sometimes I do, and I'll look, and it'll seem low, or if it's on sale, I'll just grab it. But I don't know what's standard and all that. That doesn't sound that bad though.
Okay. Now
But it's weird that they refer to it as boneless because brisket doesn't have a bone.
well, that's me. So on my
Okay,
little
that's you.
spreadsheet, it's either boneless or bone in, just so I
Okay.
can.
Okay.
So duly noted. When we talk about brisket, I will stop being a rookie and
Yeah,
say
there's no bone in brisket.
because the pork butts, I didn't know this. The pork butts, you can get them with the bone in or bone out.
Yeah,
Is that right?
I always get it with the bone.
Okay, and I have seen that. So they also had a choice grade brisket flat for $8.98 a pound. So kind of educate me on the difference, because there's two pieces of a brisket, right? There's a flat, and then there's, what's the other piece called?
The cap.
The cap. Okay. So by pricing this, I'm assuming that the flat is better.
No, it's leaner. So maybe that's what they're going by. Yeah. In fact, I would never buy just the flat because that's my favorite is the cap part of it where all the fat is. That's like the prize.
Right. Like we said before, fat's where it's at, right?
Yeah.
So
Normally, if I'm going to buy a brisket, I'll buy the whole thing together because it's just that the fat kind of transfers over into the flat, and it just makes the whole thing a lot juicier and more tender.
okay. So other than shelves and meat cases not having a lot of stuff in stock, one thing I have noticed, other than that there was no ribeyes for sale this week, but it's kind of interesting how across the different stores, same cuts of meat are on sale at the same time. So like this week, New York strips were on sale. Last week, it was porterhouses and T-bones. So they're all in cahoots together.
It does seem that way. Now, talking about prices, I went to Giant, one of your stores you typically give sales for, and bacon. I think I've mentioned this the last couple of weeks. Bacon is so expensive, but if you spent $25 on a purchase, you could buy Giant bacon for $4.99. So $4.99 used to be the high end of what bacon costs.
Right.
So now it's on sale, and it's like $4.99. I got to grab this. I had to go spend $25 in order to get myself $4.99 bacon, which I did because I picked a bunch of chuck roast that was on sale for $3.99 a pound. I believe it's what it was at Giant last week. And I bought some porterhouses too, but just the price of bacon, bacon is at $9.99 a package. It's just crazy how expensive it is for 12 ounces of bacon.
Yeah.
We used to only buy the Oscar Mayer Applewood bacon. That's what I grew up on, got used to it. But we sometimes they didn't have that at Sam's Club, so we were buying Sam's brand, the Member Mark, and it's three pack 1 pound packages in a box, and I think it was just around $12 or $13 for 3 packages of them. So that's not too bad.
No, that's not bad at all. I mean, that's the new norm. The $4 to $5 range is the low end so nope, not bad at all.
Yeah. Well, but you could still find some deals out there. You just, you're gonna have to go to different stores maybe.
Absolutely. Well, is that all you got for us this week?
That's all I got for you this week.
All right. Well, make sure you guys tune into his channel, subscribe, hit the bell, get notifications of what new sales items that may come available during the week that he has not been able to share with us this week. But Brian, thanks again, and we'll see you next Friday.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a good one.
All right, you do the same.
Yeah, it's funny looking at your photos. That's where I got the idea to get the griddle I saw you using that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, what a good idea. So now it's my smoker and the griddle. That's what I pull
Yeah.
out to
Yep.
cook with.
We have a couple different grills. I have a flat top here, and then we have a couple things in the house, but for outside stuff. The pictures, however, are inspired by Brian, of course. But you know, I wanted to also kind of document for myself. There's a lot of times I don't post the pictures to social media, but a lot of times I like to document what I had and go back and look at if it was a success. I want to go, okay, let's try that again. Or a lot of times I'll just document it just to show myself. Sometimes I'll go through and I'll look just to show that I think I'm eating fairly good for, not terribly unhealthy for me. I don't do fast food and any of that stuff. We do eat a fair amount of salads, but we put a lot of meat. And I know we had a stretch not too long ago where I hadn't had a prime rib or a filet in like 7 days. And I've started feeling like irritable. And I thought,
meat withdrawals.
yeah. And I thought, I came home one day and I told my wife, I said, we got to go to Madrone's. It's a really nice restaurant in Frederick. I said, if I don't get that 10-ounce prime rib today, so I'm going through my pictures on my phone and I'm trying to figure out the last day I had meat. I was like, wow, it was like 10 or 11 days. I was like, how did this happen?
Wow.
So yeah, so I made it a point. I had prime rib that night, and I think I had filet the next day out, and then I think the day after that we had sirloin tips or something here at the house. So she made it a point to make sure I didn't go too far. I had to compress it in there. So, but yeah.
Are you in a better mood now?
Much. Oh, much. Yeah, I had a filet. We were in Pigeon Forge, and I had we were tired, and we had flown in that day, and I didn't feel like going out, and it was starting to get late, and I wasn't sure about ordering the filet off the menu at the resort there, the hotel. In their restaurant, and it turned out I got a filet and it was fantastic. I was like, wasn't sure, but thank God, because I don't think the next day, I don't think I ate anything with any real substance until late that night, I think. So, but yeah, I'm in a much better mood.
Good. Brian, I saw you had a picture. You went someplace, you had prime rib recently. It looked like at a restaurant. Where'd you go get your prime rib?
Oh, it was at an Outback. But I was with the Rhino Bucket guys and was like, hey, let's go. Where do you want to go eat? And we were trying to figure out where everyone could get something that they wanted. So we ended up at the Outback, and I got the prime rib. And they had two different prime ribs. One was, the classic prime rib, and then one was the
Blackened.
Well, it turned out that's what it was, but it was they had their name for it. I forget. Maybe it was just Outback style or something like that. But George was like, I wonder what that is. I think I'm going to get that one. But I think that's all it was. They just took the prime rib and then they seared the outside of it with, must have been blackened spice. But
Yeah.
But that was actually pretty good.
Good.
Yeah. And it was a nice 16-ouncer too, because I like to eat at least a pound.
That's pretty good size.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm hungry with some prime rib. This past weekend, some friends of ours that we were with, they went by a seafood market to go get seafood, and this is crazy. But the guy goes, "We just caught a rockfish," and it was a pretty big rockfish. It was like a 10-pound rockfish, and he goes, "We got this," and I wasn't there. My friends go, "Well, can you fillet it and clean it?" They said, "We're not allowed to due to COVID. We cannot clean the fish." So they bought it for $30, and they sent me pictures. They said, "Hey, do you know what to do with this?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, absolutely." So Sunday I took that fish. I went down to, I said, you guys got a fillet knife or a scaler? And they're like, no. So I went down to the hardware store, bought a fillet knife and a scaler, walked it down to the beach, and I felt bad. I'm down there at the beach like a homeless person. Cut this and this little family comes walking down, and I got blood on my hands, this big long knife, and I'm throwing the guts in the water for the fish and for the crabs. But I scaled that rockfish, and I gutted it, took it up to the same grill we cooked the ribeyes on that Friday night, and I stuffed it full of butter. I forgot I had no limit, so I just stuffed it full of butter and pour salt all over it, put it on the grill. And let me just tell you, it came out delicious. We all picked at that fish, and everyone loved it. Then I cooked some steaks on the grill as well. But so we had surf and turf that night. But that's rockfish. Oh my, rockfish is my favorite fish. The grill. It's absolutely.
Yeah, I love rockfish.
Yeah, it just flaked right off, and man, it was just perfect. It was perfect. So. Anyone catches the rockfish and doesn't know what to do with it, call me and I'll come pick it up. What are you gonna say, Bob? I'm sorry.
I have an interesting recipe. We used to charter boats, being close to the Chesapeake Bay here. In the spring, when the rockfish are running and they're real big, we would go out and get whatever allotment we could get. And I know nothing about rockfish, except I know when it tastes good. and the captain we were with, he prepared it. This is pre-COVID. He prepared it for us, and these are the ingredients that he used: taco seasoning and grape jelly. And he used that to like marinate and baste the rockfish. No salt, no pepper, no lemon, none of that. It was just taco seasoning, which has salt, I guess, and pepper, but taco seasoning and grape jelly. And I thought, that's got to be the most disgusting thing I've ever heard of. And he goes, try it, you'll love it. I ended up coming home, and I was like, we got to do this again. It was so awesome. It was so awesome. But I thought, I'd never heard of that before.
Yeah, my wife Peggy, when I first was dating her, she would take meatballs and put them in a crock pot with hot sauce and grape jelly.
Yep.
And I'm like, I never heard of that combination either. And I'm like, she's, trust me, you're gonna like it. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And then I tasted them, and I was like, this tastes awesome. I said, there's no way this is just hot sauce and grape jelly. That's all there is.
We've done that with cranberries, meatballs in a crock pot with cranberries and I guess maybe grape jelly or something like that along with it. And it's sweet, and it's just that's like a wintertime thing that we do. But yeah, it's awesome.
Brian, you were going to say something. What was it?
Nah, that's what I was. Oh, well, I was going to mention. Bob, you know Frank Jones. Oh, yeah, he turned me on to the rockfish thing because he goes down there and catches a bunch of it. So I'd go up to his place and this was before I was completely like keto carnivore, and he would fry it. But when he was cutting it up, it was like cubes or big chunks of it. And he took one and he just sliced it up, and we just ate it sashimi style. And it was great. Yeah, but it was fresh. It was fresh too. So
right.
So back to that taco seasoning and grape jelly. Does he put that in the inside, or does he coats it on the outside? How does he apply it? Do you know?
Well, he did it a couple different ways. He did cube it and kind of made it into like a stew kind of thing. But for the most part, it was a fillet used it as just poured it on top and on the grill and just let it kind of cook into it. And then when he served it, he put some more on the side, so you kind of dip and, if it felt too fishy or whatever, you just put a little more of that. But it was just, I was really impressed.
Awesome. So you eat meat on a regular basis, other than you have sabbaticals of 11 days or stretches where you somehow forget to eat it?
All the time. No, all the time.
Okay.
That 11 days was I don't know what
Anomaly.
happened. Yeah, that was a mistake is what happened. I don't know why. Well, actually, I do know why. I think because I had gotten COVID, and there was a time where it didn't matter what I ate, I couldn't taste it.
Oh, right.
And my family and we like to go out to eat a lot, and I didn't want to spend $30 on a steak dinner and I couldn't taste it. So that was a good bit of it right there. So I think it was right after that when we could go back out. I could taste and smell about 60%. That's when I really said, "Oh, the first thing we got to do is go out and get this prime rib."
Absolutely. Now, are you back at 100% with your taste and smell now?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Brian, you're at 100%, right?
I think so as well. Unless it comes back even more, but I feel like I'm back to normal.
How many days were you without your smell and taste buds, Bob?
I think at 100% loss, I would say maybe 4 or 5 days, and then it came back pretty quick. It wasn't all at once, but it was pretty gradual. But definitely I couldn't tell you the difference between a Dorito and a pretzel for about 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, mine was about 5 days, and it's funny because one morning I woke up and it was like boom, it was back, but then it would sort of fade and come back. It did this weird thing. It would fluctuate for a few days, and then
yeah,
that is weird though. It's weird when you can't. I could tell the difference between like the textures, or I could feel saltiness on my tongue.
Right.
I couldn't distinguish the flavors. It was weird.
Very weird.
Yeah.
So, Bob, I got a question for you. So you're like me. I had a bonfire last night, sitting out there. I think the night you called me, I was sitting around my bonfire. We do that a lot as well. But is there an app? How do you recognize the space station? I mean, is there an app that allows you to track it?
Yeah, I use a couple of them. I use one called Sky Guide for iOS, as well as another one called Night Sky. Those are kind of my two go-tos that are on the front page of my phone. But honestly, after doing this for a couple, 4 or 5 years probably now, I kind of have the schedule kind of somewhat figured out in terms of what nights are good. But I get alerts on my phone from either those two apps, or there's a couple other little apps that I use that are just for notifications that I'll get like a 20-minute warning that says, hey, look over this way for 5 minutes or whatever. But here, it's good here where I live at home. But I have another house in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, that's where I have another fire pit, and there's nothing around. There's no light pollution. There's nothing. And on a clear night, it's amazing how you can see the ISS. I've got a couple nice cameras I can zoom in, and it's pretty fascinating, as well as a lot of other satellites. And last summer, the planets were incredible. Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, Venus, and Neptune were all visible one evening.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool. And I have pictures of that. But when I go to Berkeley Springs, there's no light pollution, and you don't even have to see on the app when the ISS flies over. All you got to do is see it. It doesn't look like an airplane. It doesn't look like anything else. You can just go, hey, there's the ISS. And then I'll verify that with my app. It uses a compass and stuff. So, but yeah, for me, I look at it and I go, there's people in there.
Right.
And they're flying at, whatever mile an hour, and they're doing research and they're doing whatever. I'm going, they'll be back here in 94 minutes around the world. I mean, to me, that's just mind blowing.
Yeah, I'm with you.
blowing.
Yeah. Talking about stargazing, I think it was my wife and I were celebrating our anniversary the other night on the 14th, and we were out by the bonfire pit, and I got a notification on my phone. It was the perfect triangle. I know it's got some type of scientific name to it, but you had the moon, and you had Jupiter, and you had Saturn, and they were all visible. I took pictures of this with my iPhone.
Right.
They were visible and my daughter unfortunately was not here because they got a really professional telescope with a big 6-foot one. You get, look down, and so when we bring the moon up on that, I mean, it's amazing how clear it is that you can just see the craters. It's amazing. But to see all the planets in one night, that has to be amazing. That's awesome. And like we're on the flight path of traffic, and then I look up all the time going, I wonder where that plane's going to. And there's a bunch of people just sitting in a chair like I'm sitting in a chair now, but they're 30,000 feet above me, just all of them in a chair. And it's like, we just take it for granted. That's no big deal. It's a huge deal. I can't believe you get a chair, set a chair, and it takes you across the country.
Yeah.
And you land safely, get up, and you're halfway around the world. It's just nuts.
Yeah.
So, but well, Brian, you got any questions for your bandmate Bob?
Oh, let me think about this.
Chance.
Wow. Well, no, I mean, I'm sure there's stuff that I don't even know that I could ask you about, but
I'm a pretty boring guy nowadays. I'm getting old.
I don't think you're getting old. It's just wisdom comes with age. It's just a benefit that you get a chance to appreciate all the things that you took for granted, and get a chance to look back with appreciation. That's how I feel. I'm old too, Bob.
Yeah.
It's okay. I like being old, to be honest with you.
I do too.
And I like applying wisdom too. I love applying wisdom as opposed to my early days where I did not apply wisdom to situations.
Yeah.
Right.
So talking about wisdom, Brian, if someone is watching tonight, what bit of advice would you give them to help put themselves in a healthier position?
Well, you've heard Bob talk about it. Eat your meat.
There you go. Well, Bob, thanks for coming on the show. Glad to have
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you out there on the road with Brian, and keep posting those pictures of you grilling those steaks. And
I will.
And we'll keep giving the thumbs up to those. Brian, you guys got a show this weekend?
Yes, we do. It's a private show. So.
Okay. So nobody will see it but the people who are supposed to see it.
Yeah.
So, awesome. Well, you guys have a good show. Everybody else, we'll see you next week. Stay safe, stay well, and stay out of that hospital.
See you, Bob.
I'll see you, Brian. I'll see you Saturday.
Yeah.